been a while since you've seen me in this car, and yes, we are picking up roughly where we left off with the turbo build. It has been a little bit of a while since we've had an update. I originally got all the components together to pretty much be able to do this in a weekend, but that wasn't the case. You see, I decided to get married and plan a wedding and pay for a wedding and all the fun stuff that comes with getting married. So the turbo project was put on the back burner just momentarily. I put a nice big pause on it. But we're back at it, and I really do need to continue and keep pushing with this project. So today we're tackling the management system. We're headed off to Core EFI and Quintin, who manufactures Core EFI locally. No, I haven't changed any more hardware. The hardware is still very much the same. It is still naturally aspirated, but I want to install the management system, a full standalone management system, and check that everything is working. All the sensors are reading what they need to read, the unit works the way it's supposed to, and get a bit of a baseline tune, almost tune it for vacuum conditions, for naturally aspirated conditions. Nothing above atmospheric, can't produce that just yet. That'll allow me to check that all the sensors are working and makes troubleshooting a lot easier down the road. I can eliminate things like sensors and ECUs when I go turbocharge, and if there is a bit of a misfire or a poor fueling issue, I know to look at either like the turbocharger or the hardware that's changed and know that it's not a faulty electronic sensor. So that's where we're off to now. I was going to go with a piggyback system, a Perfect Power SMT6, but then I was kindly gifted this Core EFI standalone unit, which is largely based on the Megasquirt system. Thank you, Michael, for that. Quintin has agreed to take a look at it and create a plug-and-play harness, which means that I'm not going to be cutting into the original wiring too much. It's going to be a fairly straightforward installation. We hope. So, let's head over there, let me introduce you to Quintin and see what we're going to do here. So this is Quintin, and Quintin is the man behind Core EFI. Like we said, we brought the car here so that we can figure out a plug-and-play system. I'm not wanting to hack into the wiring too much, looking for a fairly simple plug-and-play solution, and of course we're going to be checking that all the sensors and that run. So what are you going to be looking for here now? We've actually just pulled it onto the rollers.
So all we're going to do now is I just want to get a base comparison, because obviously you're going to want to leave here with the new ECU, so that we've got a base comparison once we put the new ECU in and everything's working and functioning, that we know that we're making the same or at least better power and that everything is working correctly the way that it needs to. And then it's off to you to play and put all the boost bits on it.
The other hardware bits, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So you said that you need to just check the pinouts, because there's a couple of variations in the ECUs.
Well, this is exactly the point. It's like in the past we found that different markets, there's slightly different pinouts for alternators and those sort of things. So to make sure that all the sensors read correctly and that everything charges correctly, rather than just giving you a plug and play and leaving you to your own devices and struggling. 10 hours of struggling for you is going to equate to like 10 minutes of struggling for me, so like save you a bit of effort.
And that's why we do it, so that I don't need to sit there swearing and throwing spanners. Quintin is the man who has the experience. Like I said, the electronic stuff scares the out of me. I've set more cars on fire because of electrics than I'm proud to admit. So I'm going to leave it to the professionals in this case.
Yeah. You got it.
You've got experience with these. You've supercharged some race cars. You had a NA of your own that you also did.
We've done a couple of turbo ones of them. We've done a few stock road-going ones with the NA motor, just to try and save a bit of a fuel economy and power. So no, we've done a couple of them. We have a decent bit of experience with that.
So this one, many don't actually know that the reason why this one sat deregistered was because it actually had an ECU fault, and that meant that the car stood for several years while the previous owner went and sourced a new ECU for it. So There's a couple of question marks around it, but I'm sure that you'll be able to...
No.
I mean, it's running and driving, so it's not too much of an issue. But we'll be able to see if there are any anomalies that we need to be aware of.
Well, that, and we're going to be looking at running a trigger wheel with a slightly higher resolution on it to try and make like tuning a bit fine and a little bit more accurate. These stock NA trigger patterns aren't really recommended when you start boosting and making decent power, because there is a certain error factor in them, and that's regardless of what ECU runs. So even on like top shelf ECUs, they'll recommend upgrading the trigger pattern from that stock OEM pattern to something like a missing tooth in that.
Okay. So you don't believe that even though it's an NA8 with a higher resolution cam pickup, that we'll be able to run that?
So the pattern's exactly the same. So at the end of the day, it's still 4 base teeth for at crank speed and 2 base teeth at cam speed. Okay. So it's still only a 90-degree resolution. No matter how you cut it or how fancy the sensor is, you're still only looking at a 90-degree resolution in between. And what that equates to is taking a ruler and trying to measure something very accurately, but you've got the ruler marked in feet rather than millimeters. So now all we want to do is we want to put a ruler in it that measures in millimeters, gives you slightly higher resolution, a lot higher resolution and more accuracy. And especially if you're going to be turbocharging on pump fuel and driving on the street, having the higher resolution goes a long way at staying accurate within your timing band and avoiding detonation or any funny things to happen on pump fuel.
Of course, can kill an engine for those that don't know.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, then let's leave you to it. Let's see what happens. Right, so we've left the car at Quintin's place with Core EFI, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit nervous. You see, Quintin put the car on the rollers, and on his dyno it made 53 kilowatts. He asked if I was sure if it wasn't an NA6, and it was indeed an NA8, because apparently NA6s produce about 61 kilowatts on that dyno. So there may be a few issues. Maybe my earlier suspicions about there being low compression or an inherent issue in the engine is going to come to realization. And that makes me a little concerned about the future of the entire turbo project. I guess we'll just have to see. Quintin's going to take a look at things, and I'm sure that he'll be able to assess the health of the engine. Of course, this car had a little bit of a problem where it stood for several years because of an ECU issue, and they were trying to trace it until they replaced the ECU. So there may be an incompatibility issue there. It may even be an NA6 ECU. I don't even know if that's possible. NA6 on NA8? I'm really not sure. But either way, it is a little disconcerting. So I'm really hoping that it's just things like, well, faulty air-fuel ratio, faulty lambda control, something of the sort, airflow meter, something, a small sensor that can quickly be rectified, or something that's getting ditched in this turbocharging process. In any case, thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned as we give you the results and the updates of this turbocharger build.